Hang on. No, is the camera on? Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is about 3:31. If I can have your attention, I'd like to call to order the Monday, March 17th, 2025 committee meeting, personnel and compensation. Roll call, please.
Ben?
Yes, here.
Here. Luhan?
Present.
Toyota?
Here.
O'Donnell?
Here.
Sierra? Seega?
Here.
Sassy?
Here. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Yeah. Please flash or place the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Legislator Sierra has joined us here, Kelly. Please. Okay, first up, we have Dr. Roman and Lisa Lehip. I believe Lisa's here. Dr. Roman and Gretchen is here. Please come on up. Good afternoon. Okay, letter A, we have a request to create one additional autopsy assistant grade 11 position within the health department / medical examiner's office. The CSEA entry rate of base salary for grade 11, step 2 is $29.6812 per hour, or $61,736.90 annually. Legislative request number is 059. Can I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Kathy and Joe, okay? And committee should have received a letter from Dr. Roman. Hopefully you had a chance to read that if you need to refer to that. Ladies, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. We've been in the new building for a little while now, and in assessing the needs of that building, it is a much larger building. We have decided to request an additional autopsy assistant. The number of decedents who are coming to the medical examiner's office has increased, as evidenced in Dr. Roman's note to you all. And they also are responsible for doing all of the cleaning of what they call the back of the house. For those of you who are on the tour, the less public areas, and operating the x-ray machine. And then, so that's why we're here.
And it's in your budget, correct?
Yes.
Questions? Just Legislator O'Donnell.
So exactly how many autopsies in that letter that they did last year?
How many autopsies did they do last year? I do.
Did she tell us in the letter?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it's in
Tell us the number in the letter, but she didn't say
270, I think.
what kind of autopsies.
So
Were
they
full
did,
autopsies?
406 cases, which were brought to the ME's office. They investigated 994 cases overall. And then the number of cases have really dramatically increased.
Right, well, my point is, there's a number of different types of autopsies there.
That's correct.
Right, can you explain that? 'Cause that's not in the letter.
I don't.
That was gonna be my question after.
I don't expect you to have any,
Okay.
just so you know.
We can get that.
We can get that for you.
How about bringing the boss here? How about that? How about the medical examiner finally showing up in person at a meeting? 3 years I've been asking for her to show up at one meeting. We give her taxpayer money, $25 million building. Then she comes here, the first meeting, I think after the building's open, asking the two new positions and sends you two, which is fine, but you don't have the medical experience she has to explain why exactly she needs an assistant and what type of autopsies and where are we going in the future with autopsies? Because I'll tell you where we're going. There's gonna be a lot less intrusive body exams with technology. She has those answers. I want her here, okay? And so should everybody else on this committee, all right? So I'll be voting no on both these positions. And anything she brings to us, till she shows up in person, it's gonna be a no for me. The public deserves better from our medical examiner, especially with a $25 million Taj Mahal of a building for her.
Well, I mean, with all due respect, it's not just for her, it's for the residents of Orange County to have a decent and respectful place to view their decedents and for people who are, who have passed away in Orange County to be treated appropriately.
They are treated appropriately, but not at $25 million, okay? That's the point. You try to sell that to the taxpayer, that we needed a $25 million building, okay? Okay, sell that one. Thank you.
Okay, point well taken, Legislator O'Donnell. I'm sorry, Legislator Manua was next.
Skip me, kind of,
Okay.
I'm trying to go here.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this goes on health and mental health tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So if we say no, it goes to tomorrow, and that's a signal to her that she should show up at 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Legislator O'Donnell.
It's a no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I understand you have a really good point, and I'm just trying to find the letter I thought I had put aside.
I have extra
Here you
thoughts.
go, yeah.
But in there, in addition to that, I had a question in that, as we were talking about this position, and I understand that, quite frankly, I had a feeling that once we had a larger facility, we were gonna do certain things like that, so I kind of anticipated it, but I do agree that we really need to have more information. But what confused me in here is that it also alluded to the fact that we had per diem people as well. What do they do?
They come in the absence of one of the two current autopsy assistants. If somebody's sick, if there was a vacation, if we had a high number of cases, then they would potentially call in a per diem.
And do we use them for cleanup and, I mean,
I think primarily no, that we just bring them in to do high volume cases or when another assistant is not available.
and I think that, because in reading it, on one hand, we're saying we need somebody that is totally trained in this particular skill, which, you know, it's a niche market, yes, it's out there. But then on the other hand, we're hiring per diems. So what type of training do they have, or what type of duties are they doing?
I do believe that the person that they are contemplating for this third autopsy assistant is one of the per diem autopsy assistants current.
And just, I mean, my feeling is that it is getting unfair to both of you. We have some pretty pointed questions that this isn't your area of expertise, either one of you. But you come repeatedly and you do the best you possibly can under the information that you've been given. So I don't want you to walk away that we're giving you a hard time. We're just trying to get to the source of the person that can give us the accurate information and not put you on the spot all the time, because I think it's embarrassing.
Well, I think that as best as she could anticipate your question, she did attempt to
I understand.
document the reasons why she was asking for a third autopsy assistant. It's just this one position.
Yeah, and this was helpful,
Mhm.
but then on the other hand, it was also confusing.
Okay.
Because it led to more questions that I normally wouldn't have had. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Catherine.
She starts off the letter, I'm sorry, thank you. She starts off the letter that she's unable to attend any of these meetings. Is there a reason that she can't, I mean, I understand if something happened with,
I believe she's away this week and that's why. she can't attend these meetings, the health, this
These two
TNC.
meetings.
Oh, these two, okay.
Today and
this-
tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I just, the
Right.
way it's written, you know, because we haven't seen her, that it just gives us the impression that she can never make any of them,
Yeah.
because she
You're
hasn't
right,
shown
you're
up
right,
for them.
if you read it that way. Yeah, correct.
Actually, she put that in the letter appointing her as the acting commissioner, that she will not be attending any meetings. That's in that appointment letter. Okay, so she has a problem attending our meetings. It's right in that appointment.
We'll find out why. I'll personally make a call to her and see if I can find out more information. But ladies, I think Legislator Benelli is
Nothing
correct.
against you two.
No, it's not,
No.
not against you. Please don't walk away angry or frustrated, but I think that the committee has spoken here, so. Anyone else? Yes, please.
I'd like the committee to take into consideration that maybe we should table this for 30 days. Allowing you to have the opportunity to talk to whoever you as the chairperson, and even the chairman, if he so chooses, to talk to and see what we can do, and see what you can get done before we proceed with this.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to table this for 30 days and a second by Legislator Menuda. All in favor of the proposal to table it?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
No.
One no. Okay, the motion carries. We're going to table letter A for 30 days. It'll be on next month's meeting. Okay, letter B. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think that Dr. Roman, and I understand tabling it, I don't have a problem with that, but I think some of the criticism might be a little misdirected. She didn't want to come to meetings as acting commissioner of health. I don't think she's saying she won't come as medical examiner, but keep in mind, because she's the only medical doctor that the county employs, she is our acting health commissioner by default, basically, other than the fact that I'm sure the county executive asked her to serve in that capacity. But if you look at the numbers of 406 cases for further examination, I don't think 3 assistants is out of whack, because keep in mind, they also bring in other medical examiners to do autopsies. Dr. Roman doesn't do all of them. So there could be 2 going on at once in the new
That's
facility,
exactly right.
for those of us that have seen it. So I don't think the request is out of whack, but I also have no problem with you tabling it for 30 days to get more information.
Legislator O'Donnell.
I'm not a mind reader, so I can't tell you what she's thinking or what she's planning or answering. I can't make a vote on it, yes.
Yeah.
I need
So
her
you can
here.
table it.
I need her here.
Okay, so the motion to table passes. Okay, let's go to letter B.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a brief comment.
Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to hear, what everyone had to say about this matter, and I definitely concur and agree with the fact that we would like to have her here. That being said, we also did appoint her and have her in that position because of her expertise. This is the recommendation that she's made. And she went to great depth and great detail to explain why that position is warranted. That's why I voted for us to vote for it today. But again, I do agree with all my colleagues that having her here to be able to answer other further questions is really important. I do want to echo your sentiments though. This was done for the residents of Orange County. And so, again, we would like to have her here because we have a lot of questions, but I support this and I'm going to support it next month or in 30 days or what have you. But thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I think we should point out, I can understand fully that the Commissioner of Health has a lot of different departments underneath her. So I can understand that if she doesn't want to come to speak to the environmental, part of your department as far as health is concerned. But on the other hand, when we're dealing with things that deal with the medical exam, I think we have a right to ask her, just like if we were discussing parks. I'd want to see Travis Ewell here, as well as Eric Daneka, if he could make it. So I'm only concerned about the medical examiner questions. I can understand the position and why she has it, and I agree. But when it comes to medical examiner questions, I think we have the right to discuss them here. And thank you again, all of you. Both of you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're welcome. Okay, everyone's good on A? Let me go to B, request to create one data program coordinator, grade 13 position. The CSEA entry rate of base salary for grade 13, step 2 is 33.6493 per hour, or $69,990.54 annually. Create one additional senior public health sanitarian, grade 15 position. The CSEA entry rate of base salary for grade 15, step 2 is $39.04 per hour, or $81,221.71 annually. And create two additional public health technicians, grade 11 positions. The CSEA entry rate of base salary for grade 11, step 2 is $29.68 per hour, or $61,736.90 annually. All 4 positions are grant funded entirely through the New York State Lead Rental Registry Grant. It's legislative request number 057.
So moved.
Lujan
Second.
and Menuda. Okay.
Okay, so in 2023, the New York State Legislature passed Public Health Law 1377, which requires all property owners of rental units within 2 communities of a concern in Orange County, which is Newburgh, the city of Newburgh, and the city of Middletown. If they have a building that has more than 2 rental units, and that building was built before 1980, they must register their rental units through a lead rental registry that is to be created by the state. There are a series of tasks that local health departments are required under the regulations to perform, including providing information to both landlords and tenants about the program, the requirement to register, to have a certain number of inspections done per year, and then that local health department has to audit 10% of those inspections each year. And so this request is for the staff to conduct this program. Fortunately, we did receive grant funding for this program, as opposed to it being sort of an unfunded mandate that taxpayers have to pay for. We are asking for these positions to be created at this time so that hopefully in November, when this all gets started, those people will have had the opportunity to meet with building inspectors, code enforcement officials in those 2 municipalities, share the information about what is required, and help the landlords get their properties registered. They have to provide lead safe certificates to these landlords. And the idea being, of course, that with the inspections and then the required remediation or abatement that would happen afterwards, enforcement on the part of the local health department would hopefully reduce the number of lead exposures to children in homes in these communities.
Legislator Menuda, go ahead.
Thank you. Is this part of the lead abatement program that we either have or used to have?
So they kind of are supposed to work together. So are you talking about the CLIP Plus program?
I don't know what they call it today, but it was a
Okay.
lead abatement program.
Right.
Basically, the county would go in and do the assessment and then do the cleanup.
So through that program, we would receive notification if a child or a pregnant person had an elevated blood lead level. And then we would go into the home and assess and make recommendations as far as abatement or remediation. And then if that wasn't done in a timely fashion, we would go to enforcement through a hearing, et cetera.
Nick Kirkland used to work on that project, and they brought a bunch of things in the city of Newburgh, and we got them moved through that process. But
Right.
it's the similar program.
It's very similar, but there are a lot of state programs that are kind of working at the same time to address this situation. One of them is Leading in Lead, which is that RUPCO is going to be administering, which enables landlords to actually get $40,000 per year to improve the remove or abate the lead that's in those units. 40,000 a unit.
A couple of years ago, I only remembered it being somewhere between 5 and 10,000.
Right.
When did that increase?
It's brand new.
Excellent.
It's brand new. So we're hoping that for people who are notified that they have lead issues in their apartments, that then those landlords will be able to make an application to RUPCO for the funds to get, to be able to take care of the lead that's in the apartments.
Yeah, because by the time the children are tested, it's too late, or we got it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And then my second question to that was, will this terminate upon funding? Terminate?
Yes,
Okay, just wanted to clear on.
all the
Thank you.
positions will, yes.
Legislator Blunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, first off, completely support this, and I'm just really happy to hear now that there's more funds available. I know a lot of people in the city of Newburgh were really happy to see, when it was $5,000-$10,000, when that was actually the price of replacing it. So $40,000 is a substantial increase. Could you please share that information with all of us, just so that we could be able to share it in our
Sure.
municipalities?
We have a meeting coming up this week with RUPCO for the Leading in Lead grant program. And then that is part of what is required for us to do is about the lead rental registry. So yes, we'll be in both of those communities.
Wonderful. Good to hear. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Legislator Blunt.
Four questions. So you answered legislative Menuda that the positions go away when the grant goes away.
Correct.
Is that written into your request?
It is written into it. It says they're entirely grant funded.
Oh,
Yes.
that's not what
That's
I
not what it says.
That's not what I said. What we do, and we do this with every department, we specifically put language in there that the positions go away when the grant goes away.
It's just technical.
Okay.
So I'll just make a motion that we add that to this request.
Okay. Second. Motion and a second by legislator Benton to amend the request to reflect that's on,
Positions will be abolished upon termination of the grant funding.
okay, so the amendment would read as such. All in favor of the amendment? Anyone opposed? Okay, so carried.
And we do it with everybody.
Sure, that's fine.
All right, so we have a affirmative on the amendment.
I have three of them.
Okay, go ahead.
So you mentioned that this program starts in November.
The program started last year.
You
We,
mentioned, I'm just going
So-
by what you told us.
no,
just now. You
the,
said something about November.
right, so the actual software that is supposed to be the actual registry where the landlords will be able to go on and register their properties is supposed to go live in November. We have other things that we have to do ahead of time, and it does take a significant amount of time to bring
this-
positions
This
on.
grant is for a year?
It's for 5 years.
Even better, okay. When you say local department, it's you.
It's us.
It's a little- So you're not talking about the city of Newburgh Health Department or the city of Middletown Health Department?
No,
Oh, well, just the language thing there should say the county
okay.
department, not the local department, because it sounds like you're looking at the locals. And Lance, why did Port Jervis not include?
We didn't make the decision on what the communities of concern were. That was made at the state level. And there are communities in concern in a number of counties. I would anticipate that it would be, if this works and helps reduce the lead, then we could hopefully expand it to Port Jervis.
So is there a criteria? So who picked Middletown and Newburgh without? Is there like, yeah, they should be A, B, C, D to be eligible? And Newburgh and Middletown were, and Port Jervis wasn't? Or they just picked it out of a hat?
I think that some of it had to do with the
You
fact.
have to pick it.
I think some of it had to do with the fact that historically, that's where the lead, the children with the elevated blood lead levels have lived in both of
So
those
they use the
communities.
criteria.
So, yes, but they didn't share that with us. They just told us these were the communities of concern.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Legislator Pat Jones, do you have a question? Was that it?
Jimmy O asked the question for me. Thank you,
Port
sir.
Jervis left out.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Lee, go ahead.
This is just such an amazingly huge task. Every single apartment building in the city of Newburgh. I mean, you're gonna have thousands of buildings and hundreds of thousands of apartments. I mean, tens of thousands of apartments. It's, and that only covers the asbestos in the paint, not counting the lead in the paint, not counting the lead in the pipe. That serves.
There's been previous programs, though. that have been
Right,
in
the
place for
lead-
years.
It's been going on for years, but still, it's,
Yeah.
what's been happening in years, I think, is like a drop in the bucket compared to a major program like this, which is good, but still huge task.
Yeah, it's around 8,000 units that they've
Yeah.
identified.
Okay, I was just gonna reiterate on that, because I know that this is primarily like for the building departments and stuff. I'm pretty sure, and I would hope that Newburgh already has a registry for all of their rentals.
And they check.
So, and they check it, but that was addressed probably back in the nineties, because I think it was 1986 and below, anything built before 1986 was put on the lead, where even if it was sold, it had to be checked before it was sold, and every unit would have to be checked if it was a multiple house. So how many of these buildings do we project actually have not already been addressed with, or have they been addressed, but it just hasn't been corrected?
So there are two requirements. There's the actual registry itself, which even if you have an apartment unit that you're the landlord of, where the lead has been abated, you've done, a lot of renovation and construction, and there's no more lead, you still have to register.
Right.
Once you get that lead-free, lead-safe certificate, then you still have to register, but you don't necessarily have to be inspected. The state anticipated for the two zip codes that were involved, about 8,200 units that are, fall into that category. That we would be then having to audit, 10% of those inspections.
We done?
Yeah, okay, so do we know how many actual apartments are in existence in those two cities? Like, for the last 20 years or 25 years, they've been working on this, so this is what has not been inspected up to this point through the other programs?
I don't know that the state has access to the municipality's rental registry or has received information from that. As I mentioned before, we have the CLIP Plus program where the health department has gone in to do inspections when we've received a child or a pregnant person with an elevated blood lead level, and sometimes those deficiencies are corrected, and we know that. Things do change in places, more construction can happen, so I think they're gonna try to do all of the units in the first 3 years, and then those that have no lead or lead-free, then they would just be required to register, but not be inspected.
Okay, my main concern is that, once again, we're only looking at rentals.
Correct.
So we're not guaranteeing that anybody has been exposed in their rental. They could be at someone's house down the street that is not required to be tested for this, and even a babysitter's house or something along that line.
So when we,
Dealing with the rentals, I understand, and I agree with this program, because we don't find out until somebody's already tested.
Mhm.
But, maybe they should look at not just expanding that, they should have expanded to, all the buildings before a certain age, which would make it a lot more,
A lot of
correct.
properties.
It's a lot of properties,
That's what
but we've been doing this for 25, 30 years
Yeah.
now, and now we're doing the same thing. We're just requiring rentals to be registered, and the registries already exist in building departments.
I'm sorry, Legislator Sierra and then Legislator Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. I understand, so this only applies to 3 families, three apartments and above, correct?
two apartments.
So any 2 families, two
Where
apartments?
both of the units are rented. Yes.
Gotcha, so 230 and above. And the 82, when they say 82 units, is those 82 apartments or are they 82 actual structures, buildings?
Those are units.
So apartments,
Yes.
and you said it was 40,000 per apartment. They
The-
could qualify for
Mhm.
40,000.
Yes. Correct.
Gotcha. And if I'm not mistaken, there's other programs, other than that program. I know they're all grant-based, but there's other programs for older buildings and single-family homes and such, correct?
Right, and there's, like I was mentioning before, there's the CLIP Plus program, which addresses when somebody has an elevated blood level. So whether they're in a private home or in a rental unit, we would be going to that
This would be in
facility.
addition to those
Correct.
other programs.
And we do have a community program, which is sort of the plus part of CLIP Plus, where we are in the neighborhood and, if people invite us in, we give them some cleaning products and, we can ask them if they would like us to look for lead if there was a concern.
Okay, Lisa, thank you.
So, is this for lead abatement or what's also acceptable most times is encapsulating? Because what they've been doing over the last 25 years basically is repainting over the lead-based paint, which is flaking and chipping, with new paint. So you have 25 years of paint over top of older paint. That's going to, if it's encapsulating and that's allowed, that's still chipping and under the chips are still underneath lead-based. So is this money specifically for actually abatement and removal of all the lead, or is encapsulating still allowed with that fresh coat of new paint?
So this program isn't for any of that. This program is to get the units into the registry and have them inspected. If there is a rental unit, a landlord who has the need for whatever it is, there is the leading in lead that they can apply for, and that's where the $40,000 comes in, and that's the rough code.
Okay, so this whole program we've been talking about is just a registry, sign-up sheet.
It's a sign up, inspections, education, being in these, in the communities and providing education, hopefully working with code enforcement.
So if there's an inspection and they find lead, 40,000 might cover that
It might,
remediation of
if
that?
they
apply
wish
for
to
it?
apply. So part of that program for the 40,000 is then the landlord has to say, we will not evict the tenants. I think it's 5 years.
5 years.
They have to keep the tenants in. So then the landlord is
Right.
gonna be making
And
a
they can
decision.
only increase the rent by a certain percentage as well.
Okay. And I know, Lisa, I've reached out to him on a couple of occasions with this program. My business is a realtor, that people are, upset. So the county already has in place a structure of measuring the presence of lead and other things in apartments, which drives landlords crazy in a sense, but it's to protect, obviously, children, and there's a whole history behind that, so. Okay, are there any other questions on this particular item? You had something off question.
I have it on the
You
side.
changed it now?
I have two.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, you mentioned two things. One, that the apartment would be abated. Now, the program used to be 5,000, is now 40. So the last program was simply around windows and doors where any place where it would rub and release lead. So is this 40,000 to do the entire unit? Walls, ceiling, radiators, et cetera, or? Like, we're getting rid of it, not just.
That's what the three of us
Right.
are saying.
So that $40,000 is through the Leading in Lead program that RUPCO's administering. I guess it would depend on what the individual unit needed and what $40,000 would buy. I know in some time, when these kinds of things have happened before, there's the perception that, the it's gonna be like on TV where there's like a whole new reveal and the apartment's all, you know.
Right, the program's a little bit disingenuous based on what it's saying, what its title is, and what it actually does. So they're not getting rid of all the lead in the apartment. They're only getting rid of lead in certain areas that might be more subject to wear than others. Is that an accurate depiction?
I would say that I maybe don't know enough about lead to completely answer the question.
Okay.
But I do know that RUPCO has been involved in these kinds of grants before and has received a grant from the state. And we'll be working with them where, like I said, we have a call later on this week to get more information
So,
about
so
how.
Rupco you mentioned.
Yeah.
To tie into this, currently, if I'm a landlord in the city of Middletown, city of Newburgh, and I convert a single family into a two-family, this was a situation I ran into, it was on the landlord to remediate that lead,
Mhm.
was it not?
Mhm.
Until the county would sign off on it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so I think that landlord still has to,
And the landlord would have to apply.
the whole apartment, not just parts of it, the whole part, all of it had to be done in this case.
So you mentioned Rupco.
Mhm.
So is Rupco the only entity that's doing this? And is this for Rupco only properties or is this for anybody?
No, it's for any landlord that applies
Okay.
through the program. That's what the grant is for from the state. They applied because they're a community-based organization that, you know, has expertise in this area.
So are they doing the actual inspections? In other
No,
words,
no,
okay,
no.
we are doing that potentially in-house and
Right.
they are doing what?
The work and the allocation of 40,000.
The actual physical
Yeah.
work of abatement
Yeah.
and allocation. Thank you for clarifying. Okay.
Thank you.
Jim, go ahead.
What's the total cost of the grant?
$728,600 a year.
5 years, so 3.5 million plus.
Okay, anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, ladies, thank you very much and have a great afternoon. Thank you. Counselor, can I keep this meeting open and then move to Mr. Martland? Or do I have to? Mr. Chapman has a lengthier presentation.
It would be, it's a joint meeting. The other
I know,
So
yeah.
it would
You
have.
stay into the next meeting.
Who is?
It's
The comment is not any.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chapman, come on up. Okay, I'm going to move on to Langdon Chapman, our Commissioner of Human Resources, and Allison Tyatt. Allison is here as well. Good afternoon, folks. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
How many of you we get?
Okay,
Prepared before we got here.
all righty. Okay, we have, I was talking to Commissioner Chapman. You're all aware of the correction officer strike. I'm sure there's going to be lawsuits with COBA and other ones there. But Commissioner Chapman is going to kind of give you an overview of some changes that are currently in the works here for correction officer hiring processes. You see, you know, the governor firing correction officers and then passing a law and executive order, I should say law and executive order, so on and so forth. And then there's home rules. So it gets pretty complicated, but I'm going to leave it up to our professionals here to give you a rundown on that process. Commissioner, floor is yours.
We're just bringing you. Zoom
Okay,
on
yeah,
the,
bring it up.
Slideshow on the. Probably a little faster than I planned, so if you need me to slow down, feel free to
Okay.
tell me to slow down. Sharing, we're getting the screen ready to be shared. We're the HR department, not the IT department.
I'm just looking at the share screen button, but I don't know if I'm practicing.
I'll be there, but then.
That's my worry. That's my worry.
You want me to start? You want me to start with the PowerPoint catch up?
I got another meeting after this. Here.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and start?
So I'll tell you what I'm gonna talk to you about, and then Allison will catch up on the slide once we keep moving here. I'll talk to you about generally how we do civil service testing in Orange County, what our correction officer test taking numbers look like, what the testing methodology's been like, what Governor Hochul's executive order impacts on that testing methodology, and just give you some top line conclusions. So I'll just jump back to 2014, 2016. Correction officer testing has actually changed a lot over the 10 years. You wouldn't think it has, but it actually has. Back between 14 and 16, we offered the test twice. And we did not have a physical component of it. We just had a written component. You know, you ask a multiple choice question. Who was the 16th president of the United States? George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, whatever. And you pick the right answer. That's the written test. At that point, we had 415 people pass the test in 2014. We had 321 pass the tests in 2016. And as I say, it had no physical fitness component to it. 4 slides there. So
Okay.
we did not do the correction officer test in 2017, 18, and 19. The reality is it had nothing to do with COVID. Sometimes we just didn't give tests because we had enough people on the list in our mind. I don't take that approach. To me, we ought to give the test as often as we can give a test if we think there's an interest out there in the field, because we want to create new opportunities for people to score and move forward. On it. This?
Oh, I just.
Okay. So as I said, when we don't test, we lose the opportunity to bring people in. And it used to be that people were beating down our doors for jobs. That's changed since COVID, not just for us, but also for the private sector. So we've done some changing here collectively to try to bring people back into our workforce. We do more testing with our civil service division. You change your salary structures, and together we've tried to shift these practices a little bit better. So February of 2020, we had 141 people take the test, and ultimately, because COVID was well on at that point, during the physical component, only 20 showed up to take the physical fitness aspect of the test. And again, you can see in 2021, 16 people showed up and passed the physical fitness test. And in 2021, the second part of the year, we did another exam, 16 again showed up and passed the physical fitness test. So we shifted from no physical fitness test to the equivalent of a police physical fitness test for correction officers, which is a pretty rigorous test. You do running, sit-ups, push-ups. And the reality is correction officers have different jobs than police officers do. They work indoors, our correction officers, for the most part. They work with people locked up all the time or in one fashion or another, and they generally will have a colleague around them, which of course is a lot different than police testing. So in our mind, it didn't make sense to use the exact same test as police officers were using. So we shifted to what's called an abilities test rather than the police officer agility test. As a result, we thought, and that test is a little bit more that a correction officer will do. I'll give you an example. You might have to carry a 100-pound bag a certain amount of time in case you have to lift an inmate or something like that. You might have to run up a flight of stairs carrying a large group of keys and open up a door in a certain amount of time. Things that correction officers might have to do on a more regular basis, different than police officers. So we created a different test called the abilities test rather than the agility test. It was a good thing. We increased our numbers, more people showed up. More people passed the test, and as a result, we were able to get people hired. But the reality is still, some people might say that testing for correction officers still was not really a great idea. Some people say in a nice way, these tests just don't make sense the way we did it. So in 2023, my first full year as commissioner, we shifted to what's called a training and experience test. That method of testing is where a candidate simply explains what their work history is to determine whether or not they're qualified to be a correction officer. And this change was offered by Albany. We have a brand new state commissioner in Albany as well. His name is Tim Hogues. Tim is one of those guys, I call him like that. I know him, although he's very accessible. Commissioner Hoag's, I should say, he's an innovator. He is not one of these people who says, well, we've always done it this way. So he challenged us all to rethink how we do civil service testing, and he came up with the training experience model to make it easier to recruit correction officers. We jumped on as a pilot program for the state, volunteered to do so. And, as I say, got better results. 2023, 271 people applied and 271 people passed. But unfortunately, only 150 of them showed up for our abilities exam. Again, I talked to you, we shifted from an agility exam to an abilities exam. So while a lot of people passed the training experience portion of the test, we still did not have as many people showing up as we wanted to for the physical component of it. We've made progress. As you can see, we tripled the number of passing candidates by going from agility to ability. We then doubled it by shifting through a training experience from a written exam, but we still want to do better than that. The effect, though, has been more applicants, more passing test takers. I don't know if this is an exact effect, but I'll take credit for it. Overtime dropped between 2023 and 2024 since we shifted to that training experience model. So we're happy about that. But then the new sheriff in town, literally, and we started talking about, do we even need to have this abilities test as a component of our civil service exam? Because at the end of the day, when you get hired as a correction officer, your training still consists of a large component of physical fitness testing, and the sheriff still has the ability to remove unfit candidates, physically unfit candidates, as well as otherwise unfit candidates. So we're likely going to move away even from the abilities test. We're going to give the next test in June of 2025. We expect to remove that abilities physical test. It'll ensure that we in HR can give the sheriff faster testing results. We'll teach people how to fill out these training and experience exam applications. We'll get more qualified candidates scoring higher locally, and the sheriff then can hire who he wants and still go through as part of the physical fitness testing through his academy, removing people who are not physically fit for the job. As I've said, Commissioner Hoag's is not one of those we've always done it this way kind of people. So he's asked, what else can we do to make correction officer recruitment easier? He's authorized us to shift to what's called a continuous recruitment model of testing for correction officers. It used to be you'd have an exam once a year, sometimes every several years. Commissioner Hoag's has said, why don't we give tests 3 or 4 times a year if counties want to do so? So Alice and Heather and Denise and their team who manage our civil service, it'll be more work for them, sorry, but they will go do so, and they're happy to go do so. We're going to create at least 3 opportunities over a calendar year to give correction officer testing, to try to get more correction officers in the door. We want into that. We want more testing. So that's kind of our goal. Let's talk quickly about the wildcat strike by some state employees. A wildcat strike, for those of you who don't know what I mean, it's a strike done by employees not authorized by the union. Section 210 of the Civil Service Law prohibits strikes by public employees. Any public employee who strikes is subject to removal or other disciplinary action. The law prescribes that Governor Hochul will do an investigation and issue reports, and that's what happens when there's a strike. She's issued an executive order. She issued it March 10th. This past Friday, our office received guidance from the New York State Civil Service. The Civil Service Department advises that anyone who is a correction officer, correction sergeant, and this is very important, and I think goes right to the chairman's request to talk about the implications of this, between February 17th and March 10th, who applies for a county job has got to be referred by us, by the HR department, to the state to determine if such person was separated from their employment as a result of their participation in the illegal strike. If it appears that's the case, the state may exercise whatever rights the state has. It's obviously very fluid. We don't exactly know what the state requirement means. One of the questions I have to state is what happens if somebody applies for a job wholly unrelated to corrections, not a state licensed job, and we just asked them that Friday. So far, they've not shared that with us, that answer with us. I personally don't think that the state has the ability to say you can't hire a former correction officer as a parks attendant, for example. But I'm looking forward to seeing what the response is to my question. I've heard from a couple of you about what happens with these lateral transfers. Gee, we've seen on other counties' websites. We don't do lateral transfers from the state in Orange County. We have our own civil service list with our own qualifications that are different from the state's qualifications. Our qualifications are higher. We, as a result, legally cannot take someone from a lower testing requirement. By the way, I've seen other counties say, we're accepting lateral transfers. That doesn't mean they're actually going to hire those alleged lateral transfers. It might just simply be, hey, call us. We'd like to talk about a way to hire you. I'm not aware of an actual lateral transfer that's hired from a correction officer who left the state to move to the county. Doesn't mean it's not gonna happen, but I haven't actually seen it happen yet. And by the way, the sheriff called me right away and said, hey, another county, I'm not gonna say it, says right near us, says they're doing this, and I reached in and found out, yeah, they're talking about it, but it hasn't actually happened. Quick summary of the qualifications: state correction officer, you gotta be 21 years old, you have to have a high school degree. For us, you have to be 20 years old, you have to have 60 college credits or 30 college credits and 1 year work experience, or 2 years of work experience plus a high school degree. We specifically asked Heather, our civil service director, and her team asked the state, would you allow us to accept state transfers? And the answer was no. And that was quite recently, Heather, was a couple weeks ago. 2-3 weeks ago. She'll come back.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, that's about right. So these are my conclusions, my takeaways. We're always trying to change our testing to make it the most logical way to attract highest quality candidates. Commissioner Hogues has been a real interesting gentleman. He's an out-of-the-box thinker, and he's told us, if you have out-of-the-box ideas, call me, and he'll implement them. And he's been a man of his word, full-throated in every single instance he can do so. The result is we're trying to get more people in through testing, having what they actually need to succeed in the job, give the sheriff the ability to hire them. And if they're not successful during the academy, they'll leave as a result of not being successful during the academy, as opposed to some somewhat arbitrary civil service test. So that's kind of my quick and dirty of what's been happening with correction officer hiring over the last 10 years, how we've changed, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have or say the whole thing again slower.
So in,
Great job.
so in sum, we're gonna offer that 3 times a year.
We're going to offer training experience 3 times a year at least.
You're cautiously optimistic that would fill our positions as needed.
I think we've got about 24 vacancies right now. We've got 111 people or so still on the list, but I want to offer the tests more because, look, maybe you're not qualified today to take the test, but 3 months from now you're qualified. Look, I've got a 22-year-old son. A year from now, he'll be doing something different perhaps than he's doing today.
Yeah.
We want to attract people to join our workforce as often as we can who are qualified.
And ultimately, the sheriff would have the discretion to determine if they were fit for the job.
If they're physically unfit or mentally unfit, then he can wash them out during the academy.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
great. Questions? Joe, go ahead.
I'm a layman when it comes to corrections and all of this, but I would think that self-defense, is that something that's taught afterward or part of the regulation to even become an officer, having seen all the video and the things that we've seen over the last year?
I can't speak to what goes on in the correction officer academy. But I'll tell you this, it wasn't part of the physical fitness test in the past. So the physical fitness test initially, so go back to, there was no test. Then the test was how fast can you run, how many push-ups and sit-ups can you do? None of that's self-defense,
So you can
obviously.
be a great athlete, but not be able to defend yourself.
I can run pretty fast, but I'm not fighting with any of you.
Gotcha.
So it's just one of the realities. So it's just the reality.
Okay, thanks.
Let's say O'Donnell.
Yeah, so the fence comes during the academy.
Okay.
Right, so usually we attend with the police. So how often do they do the corrections academy here?
I don't know how often they do the corrections academy here.
So my point to answer that question is if we're gonna increase the testing to 3 times a year, and you're not having a correlation with having the academy more.
It's a fair question, Legislator O'Donnell. I believe the answer is and this is going to sound like a bureaucratic answer, as often as they
No,
need.
come on.
As often as they need to.
I think so too.
I think that is the answer. They do it as often as they need to.
The academy,
Yeah,
For
because they do that
corrections,
in-house.
thank you.
I don't know if you could pass that test today, but.
I definitely get a higher score than you.
That sounds like a challenge.
Yeah, I'm not even touching that.
Tough. Legislator Benton, go ahead.
What do you know about the corrections academy? Because this is the first time I'm hearing about a difference between the police academy and the corrections academy.
So totally different focus points. I mean, the police academy, it's a different qualification to be a police officer than to be a correction officer. It's, there's a police academy run by the chiefs here in Orange County.
Right.
The corrections academy is run by the sheriff.
Okay.
And really totally different tasks too.
Okay, Kat?
I agree with everything that you're saying. I just have one question. What is the state's, I guess, take on why we can't hire the correction officers?
Well,
I mean, like, it seems to me that if they're no longer employed, whether they left on their own or they were terminated, that you are going to now stop them from being able to get a job? How can the state, I'm
I
just
think-
baffled by this.
I think the question, the best argument the state could make, I think, is that they are a state certified peace officer defined in state law, and they get approved by state as peace officers, not by us. And, anytime you have a state license or certification involved, the state's gonna have jurisdiction over you is what their argument's gonna be. That's why I have a hard time understanding how they could stop us from hiring them as a parks employee or an HR or any place else. But unless there's a state license or
So
certification.
she's basically, or the state's basically being very vindictive because
Yes.
people actually stood up for their own safety and the safety of others, including the inmates,
Right.
which makes our government really disgusting. That's it, thank you.
I think it's a fair perspective.
Any other questions or comments?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
afternoon, great presentation.
That just pissed me off now, I really need to.
Okay, motion to adjourn the personnel conversation. Second, all in favor? Okay, all right, next up, we have the Joint Personnel and Compensation and Labor Relations Advisory. First, I'm gonna call, Kelly, ask you to call to order personnel and compensation, the attendance for them, I'm sorry.
Ben,
Here.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Laurent.
Present.
Here.
Here.
Sierra.
Here.
Bianca.
Here,
Tess.
Here. Okay, and a roll call for labor relations.
Ben.
Here.
Fagion.
Here.
Nuda.
Here.
Goodrich.
Here.
Paduk. Jason. Cortell. Here. Tess.
Here.
Present one.
Okay, if everyone can come on up, or come on up. Okay, we have one item on the agenda today, and it's actually good news here. Paul Martin is going to come up and join us. Dr. Young is not available to be with us today. She is traveling with the SUNY Orange basketball team. Is that correct, Mr. Martin?
She's actually on vacation in Illinois, but that's where the team.
That's where the team is, yeah.
They're national.
Bearing in mind.
Just a tournament, so she's gonna be there today. In fact, as we speak, the game is taking
Good luck. Come on up.
Vinny is okay. I'd like to invite two of my colleagues.
Absolutely. Come on up, gentlemen. Yes. Okay, Mr. Martland has good news. I know there's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes with the college and with Commissioner Chapman and all those involved. So we're looking today for request approval and execution of the proposed contract with the Faculty Association of Orange County Community College, legislative request number 072. Can I have a motion? Luhan and Kathy. Okay, Mr. Martland, the floor is
you need it
yours.
for both,
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
need it for both.
I'll move from labor.
Okay, move from labor, Lori Tortel. Second from
Second.
labor is Majority Leader Ben. Great. Mr. Martland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I always say I'm happy to be here whenever I come to meet with the committees. But I really am particularly happy to be here today because I think not that long ago, there would have been a large number of people feeling that we would never be here for this particular topic. As those of you who've been on the legislature for a number of years, may recall, the faculty negotiations were quite contentious. The last time the contract came up, 5 years without a contract. We took baby steps a couple of years ago to at least get that contract resolved. But we came into this one and I wanted to have these two gentlemen here with me today because it really reflects a huge difference as to what's going on at the college compared to where we once were. So on my right is Professor Tony Cruz, Professor of English, and he's the president of the Faculty Association. On my left is Russell Hammonds, who is a professor of computer science. This assistant professor is technically the term, or associate, I'm not sure which rank you are. But Russell served as the lead negotiator for the union during the contract negotiations. And Biden is still here, but he offered the opportunity, when we first started talking about, how this was all going to play out. He had worked with me in the past on some other contracts, and he was comfortable with sort of the college taking the lead. He provided me with some comparative information about other contracts that had been resolved both by the county and at the state level. But basically, until, we needed his guidance, we would call him, but the two parties were able to handle this on our own. And I think it's a real testament both to the leadership of the union, but also to the leadership of the college that we approached this very differently than we had in the past. And I am really pleased with the outcome, number one, but I'm also pleased with the process. During the process, we met officially 13 times to get this done. And each meeting was professional, each meeting was problem-solving oriented, and both sides went into it saying, we are not going to fail, that we're going to get this done. It took us a little longer than we had hoped, but it was primarily because I had some issues, both with my own health and my wife's health, that kept me home for a few of the meetings. But I think it really demonstrates that the college is on a different path than it was when the last contract was started those many years ago. So I can give you a quick summary, but if either Russell or Tony would like to comment, I would offer them the opportunity to do so.
Paul's given us a lot of money, so please.
That isn't exactly.
No.
Let's let him notice and make it quick.
No, this is really how our meetings went, though. I mean, we had fun with it. It was a good time. It really was.
Those are great answers, St. Patty's Day.
Yeah. Make it go fast.
Show the green.
Well, just to review, you have your packets, everything's in there. I'm sure nobody bothered to read the entire 20-page spreadsheet, but the highlights and the financial highlights are the big items for us. 85% of our budget is salaries and benefits, so that's the key for us. The annual salary increases over a 5-year contract of 4%, 4%, 3, 3, and 4, for an average annual value of 3.6%. And that is well below the most prominent benchmark that we had as we went into this, which was the CSEA contract. So we felt that that was very reasonable. We did a few other minor things on with costs. Health insurance buyout raised from $2,000 a year to $2,400 a year, which is the same as our staff care union had negotiated the last time around. Still below what the CSEA is. There was, for retirees, accumulated sick leave, we did not increase the percentage, but we did increase the total number of days that could be looked at by 10 for each category of relatively minor cost. We had one non-bankable sick day per semester for all of our adjunct professors. Prior to this contract, adjuncts had to teach 4 consecutive semesters in order to be eligible for a sick day. We had issues regarding faculty loading, where there was some give and take on the maximum number of hours a faculty member on the contract system could be loaded. But there was an increase in the rate for contract hours versus credit hours, which is a higher ed thing that you really don't want to ask me too much about because we could be here all day. But in exchange for that, we also negotiated class caps for distance education classes from 20 to 25, which savings is significant. And then there was really the money part of this got resolved very quickly. What took the 13 meetings was the language discussions, but I think we made some real headway on the language side. Did everybody, get to talk about everything they wanted to? Well, no, of course not. But we hit some really major issues, and I think we were able to resolve them in a way that was acceptable to all sides. And, the union leaders have to sell this to the membership, and they have to be listening to what the members are really saying is important, and they did a good job of communicating with us. The key things that had to get some motion, and I said motion, I was thinking of your picture. Sassy. But I think we went a long way, and we also replaced some very confusing language about if we ever need to go to retrenchment, how would that work? Which I think was a hallmark of this contract. So that said, I will stop, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have any questions for Tony or Russell.
Lori, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you go back to what you said regarding the sick time? They have to wait 4 consecutive semesters before they can earn it? Or did you correct that?
We corrected that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. I
that-
thought, I was
Yeah,
like.
that's just for our adjunct faculty, so our part-time faculty members. And it really, makes sense to treat everybody the same.
Yeah, and also, if I'm not mistaken, I have to look at the size of the entity. There's New York State law that says sick time is now earned immediately when it started. So.
Anyone else? Questions? Okay, all in favor?
Same with
Anyone
this side of the
opposed?
county.
Great, congratulations. Thank you very much. Commissioner Chapman, thank you. Seems happy. Okay, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. We need-
Just stay, because they're gonna go.
Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute.
Chairman, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, do you want to do a
Yeah,
separate motion for each committee?
Yeah, so I'm gonna, motion to adjourn for PNC.
No, you gotta vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
You have to
Okay,
vote
so
on
PNC members, all in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, labor relations members, all in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Now, motion adjourned, we're good. So, right? Okay, great, thank you. All right. Great. Okay.
And then
E&E, motion adjourned? Done? Okay. No, we gotta start E&E. Starting.
All right.
We done?
We're done.
Turn off.